Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Bridging Impact Podcast, the podcast that bridges wisdom from generation to generation. And I'm your host, Justin Furtado. My guest today is the one and only Niki Spears. Niki Spears is currently the Training and Development Specialist at Culture Creation. She is the author of a book, The Beauty Underneath the Struggle, Creating Your Bus Story. And in our conversation today, we talk about empowering our team, we talk about the power of creating, and we talk about embracing a leadership mindset and being 100% responsible for our actions to make the world a better place. So, without further ado, let's dive in. Hello, Niki, and welcome to the Bridging Impact Podcast. I'm thrilled to have another podcast episode with you today and talk about empowering leaders, culture creation, maybe writing books, and really focusing on developing the next generation of youth and youth leaders. So we'd like to start our podcast with, how do you define impactful leadership, and how does impactful leadership show up for you in your everyday life with the so many things you do?
Ooh, that's a good question. Thank you so much for having me, Justin. So your first question is, what is impactful leadership? You know, over the years, my idea of what leadership is has changed. In the beginning, when I first became a leader and I was searching for, what is leadership? It was really a position, or having that title. But what I've realized is the most impactful leadership is learning to lead yourself. That's what leadership is all about. And so when I go in and I'm talking to leaders and I'm talking to educators, I am really talking about how do we find the leader, or discover the leader within, because what happens is a lot of time we look for leadership outside of ourselves when we are the ones who lead our lives. We are the ones who determine who we are. We're the ones who determine how we show up. And so when we talk about impactful leadership, the question is, how am I leading myself? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. That totally makes sense. And now I'd like to, step back a little bit. And you talked a little bit about, you talked about, authoritative leadership or leadership in a position. Where did these ideas come from, and how did you get kind of started in this on your leadership journey?
So where did that start? I think, I'm thinking as a little girl and growing up in this world, we look at, people with titles and positions. Even when we think about our own family, mom, dad are in charge of the family. And then as you grow older, you go into your workplace, and then you have a manager or a boss. And with me, I went into education, and I had a principal who was in charge. So you saw all these people that were put in these leadership positions, and they were the ones who were calling the shots, sort of. So your parents were the ones calling the shots, or maybe it could be your pastor. Maybe it could be, your supervisors, but you felt like they were the ones calling the shots. When I became a principal and I was put in a leadership position, I realized that I couldn't do this by myself. There is not, one person cannot lead an entire organization. It takes people to first lead themselves. And so when you can get people to understand that they are leading their own lives and empowering them to do so, that's how you build culture. And people do it all backwards, Justin. They want me to come in and they want me to fix their team, and they say, Niki, what can you do to fix my team? We have very negative culture here. And I said, I'm going to fix your team by having them understand what leadership is, and that they are all leaders, that they first have their personal culture, and then that personal culture transitions into our team culture. And so if we can all assess who we are on an individual basis, we become better teammates. And when we become better teammates, we make a better environment to work in. So I think my transition from, I think that's what you asked me, from, my idea of what leadership is understanding that, people have these titles and positions of authority. However, I am the greatest authority over my own life. No one can make me do anything or think anything unless I allow them to do it, unless I give them permission to do that. So actually, I'm leading myself.
Right, taking ownership of your own self, your own life, and being able to recognize that you can be a leader in the team and influence the people around you and the culture. So I'm curious, could you expand a little bit more on what being a leader of yourself looks like for someone who
Mm,
may not see themselves as a leader? Because right now I see myself as a leader, but taking myself back 3-4 years ago, maybe I didn't. So like for those, where do you start, and how does that process really begin?
okay. I think it first starts with changing your idea of this position. You know,
Mm.
leadership is, like I said, is leading self. How well do you know yourself? So when we think
Right.
about becoming a great leader of self, first I need to take responsibility for my life. A lot of times, Justin, we want to blame things on our parents. We want to blame things on society. We want to blame things maybe on our schooling, our friends, our bosses. We don't take ownership. And so our society is accustomed to placing blame on something outside of ourselves. Leading
Right.
yourself, first of all, is about understanding I'm responsible for this life. I made the decisions that I made. If I don't like the life I have, I need to look at and examine the decisions I made and make different decisions. So for me, becoming a better leader or how to lead yourself is being responsible for yourself and your actions and your ideas. It is being aware of who you are, being aware of your belief systems, and if those belief systems are serving you well or not. Being open, being open to different people, to different ideas, being courageous. If you're going to lead yourself or anybody else in this world, guess what? We're going to have to be courageous because we're going to have to be able to look in the mirror and face some things that maybe we didn't face before, own some things about ourselves. So we have to be courageous. We need to be more grateful, have an attitude of gratitude. We talk to people today, Justin, and they are so focused on all the negative things happening around us, and they forget that there are miracles happening each and every day. So being grateful, understanding that we all have an awesome talent, that Justin, there is no one else like you on this earth. And knowing that makes you just an awesome individual and you have something unique to share with the world. So not only being courageous, being grateful, but sharing that light and that awesomeness with others, and ultimately just being you, being the person that God created you to be, so that you can come in and do the things that He needs you to do. And so we were all called to do something great in this world. My calling may not look like yours, yours may not look like mine. However, we each have something to contribute to this world. And that's how we begin to lead ourselves, is by looking at ourselves and focusing in on those areas.
Right. No, it's about understanding the impact that you bring to each team. We all,
Exactly.
like you said, are different. We have our own unique DNAs, and we need to again, paraphrase what you were talking about, to be ourselves,
Yes,
right? Instead of like trying to compare ourselves,
to
like
somebody
in
else.
society, where we kind of talked a little bit about this pre-podcast, but it's challenging, right? When you're looking at all these social media images of what we should be, right, and how we should act, and we know deep down that's not us, but we think that's we're social creatures, and we want to be, we want to fit in with our peers, right? I think it takes courage, like you're talking about, to look at yourself in the mirror and be like, I'm not like this other person on Instagram. I'm not like this other person on LinkedIn. I am me, and I bring this value to the team. And also talking about like kind of the attitude of gratitude is like something that I even almost fell, I don't want to say victim to, but I was a little bit challenged with towards the end of last year when I was moved to Los Angeles. It was really challenging for me, and then some of the things became have tos instead of get tos, and my attitude honestly soured a little bit. And then this year I decided to really be like, I get to go substitute teach, I get to
Yes.
coach basketball to youth, and it's been kind of an unlocker, and more opportunities have been coming to me, and I've been enjoying the process more. So I'd love
Something
to talk a little bit.
I love that what you said. It says You said, I changed my attitude, and now other things have been coming to me more. And
Right.
Justin, I learned that. I mean, I wish I had known all this stuff when I was back in my 20s and 30s. I really struggled with that. I mean, I was in this negative bubble and I didn't know how to get out of it. But once I started focusing on the positive, and I know it sounds a little cliche or fluffy, but when you said that, don't you agree that when we focus on the good, those things expand in our lives? And so when whatever you choose to focus on, and if you choose to focus on all the struggles in the world, then you're going to bring in a lot of that energy. But when you turn your focus to gratitude and the positive things, then more of those things start to flow in your life. Not only that, you're going to get some new opportunities that's going to come to you, and with that mindset. And so I think that's so important for people to understand.
Yeah, 100%. I really couldn't agree more. And I mean, it's like attracting. So, I mean, I've heard about this thing with a car, right? Like, I used to drive a Volvo, and I used to see Volvos all the time.
Uh,
But now I drive a Prius, and I honestly, there are a lot of Priuses on the road, but I see Priuses all the time,
yeah,
right? It's kind of like when you have that thing, it's in your mind,
your
like you're
mind.
able to see it. So, with that being said, how do you then, start to recognize yourself and then become a better team player and create some of these cultures that you're hoping to create?
So I think I'm really big on focusing on myself, my own energy. And I
Mm,
believe that if everybody were to do that, that's how we create better teams. The problem in our on our teams is we can see right away, Justin is like this, or maybe John does this, or Julie does, but rarely do we talk about what can I do or what am I doing? And
right.
that's powerful because really I have no control over Justin, John, or Julie. The only person I
Mm-hmm.
have control over is me. And so, and my the way I show up, my reactions, my responses to things, my attitude, it's all me. And get this, we assign meaning to the things that's happening around us, okay? So, based on my belief system, based on my experiences and my ideas, I can wake up in the morning and I can see either a good morning or I can see the bad morning. It all depends on how I choose to frame it. And so, because we all have that power, we need to understand that we are the ones who create the world around us. Nobody is doing it to us. We get to create that ourselves based on how we choose to see the world and the things we choose to focus on.
Right. It's a choice and an opportunity to create. Like, I like the word create, and I almost want to keep going on the conversation about creating, because for the past 3 years, the content creation is kind of a buzzword, buzz topic, and it's helped discover myself because I've been creating and I've been learning so much about
Hmm.
myself. And I'm like writing, I'm making videos, and like it's almost like helping me create the way I see the world, and it's giving me
Hmm.
some of these opportunities that I'm talking about and connecting and sharing my values and ethos with the world. I would love for you to expand on what creating means for you, because your brand is culture creation,
Uh-huh.
right? And I know that creation starts with the self, but I'd love for you to just expand more on create.
Yes, we're all creations from the creator. And so here on this earth we're constantly creating. No matter if you're creating, with your hands, you're also creating with your mind. So when we wake up in the morning, we're creating our reality. And either we can choose to adopt a negative reality, and that's our creation that we've created, or we can choose to create something positive. So for example, when we look at something as big as COVID, and you talk to people, and people are just so down because they see the biggest struggle that this world has faced, in our times. It's like the biggest thing that we face, and we've been going through this for so many years. This is maybe the darkest time for some people. Whereas I changed that, Justin, to say, this is the brightest time because this is a time for us to self reflect. This is a time for us to really think about who we are as leaders and leading ourselves. this is a time to create something we've never created before. And so it's in these moments that are the toughest, is that when we become our most creative. This is when people are creating their own businesses. People are leaving jobs to create things that they want to do rather than they have to do. They're not just going into work. People are saying, you know what, I'm done with work. This is what I want to do, and I can create that. So with culture creation, we believe that people create their own culture. And that starts with personal culture first. Like when I talk about leadership, self, leading self, that's a part of creating your culture and building your own personal culture, so that when you go in and you're working with a team, now you understand who you are as your personal culture, and now you can create a more positive team culture.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to touch on, so your book, Beauty Underneath the Struggle, and you've touched on it a few times, and you talked about pottery in one of your recent blog
Yeah.
articles, and about like kind of the cracks. And so, you talk about leading with that kindness and that love and attracting that. So for those that are going through, this challenging time of COVID, which it's been very difficult for quite a lot of people. I'm curious how you have used in your past, like, an opportunities of some of these challenging times to invite and create this own culture.
Yeah. Uh, COVID has presented a lot of different struggles, and I'm sure all of us can relate. Some of us have lost family members. For me, one of my brother was in the hospital for 3 months. My dad had COVID. I've had a lot of personal issues happening here lately. I have really been tested with finding the beauty underneath the struggle. And when I look back on any struggle, and I think everybody who's listening, if you can find any struggle in your life, no, it doesn't matter if it happened, years ago before COVID, or if it's happening now during COVID. With any of these struggles that we've had, these these events, these things that have happened, have really propelled us forward, or they should anyway. There was always a learning in the struggle, and that's the beauty of it. So the beauty is not always, it's not always beautiful. I think the beauty is that we evolve into the people that we are meant to be on this earth. That's the beauty of it. Some of it is not beautiful. When we lose a family member, that's not beautiful. When someone becomes so ill, that's not beautiful. When people are so angry at one another, that's not beautiful. The beauty is that we pick ourselves up, and we keep going, and we learn. We learn from the journey how to be better people as we continue to our destination, wherever that is. But we pick up this wisdom, and we become better leaders of ourselves because of these things. And that's the way I look at the beauty underneath the struggle.
Yeah, we learn from this evolution of challenge, I feel like. And I've been reading a book called The Inner Game of Tennis, and in one of the chapters they were talking about, right, I don't even play tennis, but I kind of get the point of, sometimes when you're playing a game, or you want to play the easy opponent so you can win, right? But that's not going to get you better. It's better to play the opponent that is going to get you better. And a lot of times it's these challenges and obstacles that you really, you don't want to play, but playing them is going to help you, evolve as a human, right? And I believe that's something that's personally happened for me in moving to Los Angeles, and like feeling like an outsider, and like, I'm not a city person per se, and so, but I feel like I've grown as a leader in my ability to connect with so many different people,
Yeah.
because I'm working with so many different people versus before, right? Like in the Pacific Northwest, it was, I was working with less diversity, less culture, and it's a okay, because that was my experience at the time, but now I'm becoming a better leader and a better connector.
And it's like you're expanding yourself, right? That expansion.
Yep.
And so that's always better, because now you're getting new experiences, you're being more open to new experiences, and yeah, it can be very uncomfortable, but that's part of the grow. And so that's going to lead you to wherever God is leading you. I'm a believer. You don't have to be. Whoever is listening don't have to be. But wherever God is leading you to go, all of these things is helping you get there. And the struggles are as well. So if things were always great, what do you learn? Right? You pretty much become complacent because there'd be no need to do anything. The struggle really makes you get up, and you have to push, you have to do something different. That's what the struggle does. It says you can't continue to do. With COVID, we can't continue to have the same mindset that we had 2-3 years ago. We have to come in here with a different mindset in order to deal with what's happening with COVID, not only on our physical health, but our mental health. So we're going to have to change some of these belief systems that we have, that we've adopted long ago, and we're going to have to confront some of these things and say, is this belief serving me well or not? Just because I learned this from my big mama or I learned this from my parents, that doesn't mean that this is serving me well in this moment. So there have been several things I've had to confront about myself, about my upbringing, that I'd say, is that serving me well right now? I don't think so. This is my new belief.
Yeah, sometimes it's about rethinking that belief, the old belief systems that we've had. And I was honestly, my next question was going to be like, where did some of this desire, before, like, you went on this culture creation, this author, motivational speaker journey, you were working with kids and students as a teacher. And I'm just curious, number one, where did that come from, and wanting to kind of give back to the next generation? Because bridging impact, right? We want to impact the next generation. And then to follow that, what are some of the things that you've had to relearn and rethink or unlearn in that process as well?
So I think my passion with culture, I think, started as a young kid. And I wouldn't have referred to it as culture at the time because that wasn't a word I used, but it started in my family. I grew up in a family where there was a lot of conflict. And there was conflict at the top with my parents, which trickled down to the kids, which caused a lot of division. And as the oldest child in the family, I wanted to fix it. I felt like it was my job to fix it. And so I spent a lot of time thinking, how can I change this person? How can I change this person? How can I bring people together? And I was constantly thinking about that. Once I became an adult, I started thinking that I wanted to go into education, because education would be that place where I could touch everybody. I could touch the families, I could touch the kids, and I could touch the community, and I could bring all these people together. And I saw how magical that was as a preschool teacher. I worked with Head Start, and Head Start is all about the family component, bringing people together, the families, the community, the students. And I saw how that worked magically. And I began to understand more about culture and how to create a positive environment. And that was about empowering people, giving them a voice. Parents would actually come into our classroom and they would help develop lessons with us. We would make home visits. And so that was that connection that we had, where they felt empowered to say, these are things my kids are learning. These are things they need to know. These are things that are helpful. These are things that would be helpful to me and my family. So they had a voice. And so I took that into public education with me and became one of those teachers that was different from everybody else. Because instead of pushing parents out of the classroom, I had a room full of parents and people didn't understand it. My peers would look at me and like, Niki, why do you have these parents in the classroom? Now we have to have parents in the classroom. But I understood how to empower my parents so that they could then empower students, and I wasn't doing so much work. I had people reading, parents reading with students in one corner, writing with students in another corner. I had a system of people working together for a common cause. And so I began to see that as a teacher and how to create that. And as a principal and being a leader, I totally understood that it was about empowering people. It wasn't about telling people what to do and this is your job and micromanaging. but empowering people to embrace our mission, our vision, and then allowing them to have say so in how we do these things, right? So that's where my love and my passion. It all began when I was a little girl, and I got an opportunity to leave my job after I saw what was happening as a principal and how many other people were trying to create the same environment I was trying to create, and left my job to help schools and organizations do that. Is build culture. And I'm sorry, I forgot your second question.
No, we'll go from there. I
Okay.
think I want to dig in a little bit on empowerment, because that's something that I definitely believe in. As a coach, I try and, even for the young athletes that are only 6 to 9, I try and let them sometimes lead warm ups, or like give them a choice and like have them choose and pick. And I'd honestly love to even explore how you got the parents engaged and involved, but just to kind of like keep it broad and general for those that are listening, like how did you empower those parents? How do you continue to empower your teammates, your employees, and all the people that you come in touch with?
So empowerment first starts with the idea that I cannot do this alone. We are a team,
Mm,
and sometimes if you have a mindset that as the leader everything is on me, it's going to be hard for you to empower. So you first have to change your
mm,
idea of what leadership is, and empowerment. Empowerment is understanding, like I said to you earlier, is that there is no other person like Justin on this earth. And because Justin is the only person like Justin, Justin brings certain skill sets. I need to know what those
right.
are, okay? I need to get to know my team members well enough where even if they don't know Justin, because you're going to run into a lot of kids who say, I don't have any talents. I don't know what those are.
Right.
As a leader, you can help them discover those. You see things in
Mm,
people that they don't see in themselves, and they start to shine because all of us want to be recognized. I mean, when I'm out
yep.
speaking to people, and people love when you say, Justin, I see you. People love when you recognize them. And so when you empower, that is a way of recognizing that I see you. I see your gifts. I need your gifts. I want them here. And that's what empowerment is all about. It's just recognizing that people have value to add to your community, and it's not just you because you hold a title.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. It's giving people, like, I'm definitely a big believer in getting to know your team members. Whether it's the youth you're coaching, or the team members that are really you're the same level of, I guess, we were talking about positions, and saying I see you, right, and getting
Right.
to know them. I try and ask, no matter what it is, whether I'm substitute teaching, I'll ask something that's not about school, or if it's about basketball, I'll ask something about school, and trying to get to know the whole person, right? Like, it's not about just like one aspect of their life. Humans have multiple
Multiple.
interess, right?
Right.
And I think, as I hear you talking about, like, sometimes people don't recognize their own strengths, and you got to tell them so they can be like, oh, and then they can start thinking about it and empowering themselves, right? But sometimes they don't recognize that right away. And I think that's a good reminder for me as a leader, to be like, maybe this student doesn't have a great jump shot, but
Hmm.
maybe they're great, play great defense, and like, oh, then they can like start building that, and building that self-confidence around that. To use basketball as an example, right? And I really like, I want to talk about this important piece of connection with everyone on your team, and really just humans in general. And you've touched on it a little bit, but I think it's probably pretty important to the fabric of culture creation.
Connection. Is that what you asked? Connecting.
Connection, yeah.
Connection to me is a lot like empowerment and empowering
Mm-hmm.
people, because in order to connect, that means I need to be a good listener, which a lot of
Mm,
times we're not. And I've
yeah.
had to, especially as a leader, I've had to really stop. I love to talk, and so I've had to really, Nikki, listen and learn, right? And so it's
Yeah.
listening to people, listening to what they bring to the table, listening to listening to some of their beliefs, listening, just listening and being aware of who people are, asking questions, getting to know people, and that's how we connect with one another. Understanding that, you know what, Justin, you you bleed like I bleed. You hurt like I hurt. We all have painful moments. Understanding that everybody's going through something. They're not going through the same things that you are. You know, sometimes it's work related, sometimes it's, family related, but we are all going through something at this time. And being able to recognize that in another human being helps you connect. I think what keeps people separated is that not understanding, making it all about your world and your perception and your hurt and your pain. Um, we all hurt. We all have some painful things that's happening, or that is happening right now. And connecting is understanding that we are all in this human experience together. And if you're in that human experience, we're not going to be happy all the time. There is no positivity all the time and smiling and laughing all the time. There are going to be times when I come in and I may be down. And yes, me too. Miss Positivity may need some uplifting, right? It makes me human. So connecting is understanding that you're human, I'm human. And the connection comes because we both know that, right? We know that.
Yeah, we know that, and it's facilitating that connection. And I think that's one of the reasons I named this podcast "Bridging Impact." Obviously, to bridge, wisdom from experienced leaders like yourself to young leaders like myself and whoever else is listening, right? But it's also, I think, about connecting and recognizing that we are all human. I think a lot of times I'm a big believer in intergenerational leadership, which is why I reach out to a lot of experienced leaders like yourself and try and learn and connect, because I believe that, of course, that I can learn from you, but I'm sure you can learn
I'm
from
learning
me
from
and
you.
other
Yes.
people. Exactly. It's like it goes both ways. And I think there's been so much division in terms of media and right. Like that's probably a full other podcast that we could do. Um, but I am such a big believer in this piece of connection. And so, what is kind of your vision for culture creation? What is that kind of like, almost to go back to the Better World Challenge and the podcast that we did before, is like, what's this future that you're envisioning for, youth being able to connect with one another better, and teachers being able to connect with one another, and leaders being able to connect with one another better?
So my vision for culture creation is that we all begin to understand that we create our own culture. That no one can come in and create culture for you. That's something that you must do for yourself. And so the understanding, and envision a world where each person understands that they create the world that they live in. I mean, envision that for one moment, where every person wakes up in the morning and they understand that the world that they see is what they've created.
Mm.
And of course, I can't see people waking up saying, "Oh, I want to create something negative today," right? I want
Right,
to create a
right,
lot of drama today. I think that if we
right.
understood that the whatever we see outside of us is not even real, it's what we create up here. That's our reality.
Mm.
And when we understand that, that's what building culture is all about. We're taking care of our personal culture first, so that then when we go out, and if I choose every day that I'm going to create a positive culture, then I go in and I create positive experiences. And so that's the goal of culture creation, is that we start to wake people up where they see that you create this life. No one has created it for you. You created it. And if you woke up this morning, guess what? You get a chance to create your reality every single day.
Yeah, I love it, and it's being your own creator of your own life, and
Yeah,
that way, then you can go out and serve other people on your team and the people
exactly.
that you lead, and continue to keep moving forward and make strives for making a better
Love it.
world. So
I love it.
exactly, yeah, me too. And I think as we kind of wrap up this conversation in this podcast, what advice do you have for young leaders like myself and for those that are listening?
I admire you so much. Let me say that first. The things that you're doing just to spread positivity,
Thank you.
to talk about kindness, that to me is huge, and I think it's something we should all do, no matter how old we are, how young we are. It's something we should all be doing in the world that we live in right now. That keeps that divide keeps us from connecting, because there's
Right.
a divide there in belief systems, and so,
Mm.
but we
Yeah.
all believe that we should create a space of love and kindness, and so what you're doing here with the podcast and other things that I see you do, Justin, you are changing the world, right? No matter if it's one person you're talking to or 10, I don't care. That one person will go out and make a positive impact on somebody else. So, what I would say to the leaders out there, because sometimes when we start to explore our own leadership and we want to do some things and take some risk, and maybe you want to write a book, maybe you want to start a podcast, maybe you want to get on social media and just start putting out some positive messages. The things that keep us from doing that is we start to say, but who am I to do this?
Mm.
I don't have any followers. I don't have,
Right.
enough, we always think of lack, like I don't have enough people or, supporting me. Whatever that is, continue to push, because it's always that one person. And if you can impact that one person, think about all the people that one person can impact just from your message. So what I would say to young leaders is find that space in the world where you feel you're in your purpose, and you do what you've been called to do. Have the courage to do it, and don't think so much about, oh, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough friends, don't think lack. Think of what you do have. And when you think of what you do have, then you can build on that. And so that's what I would encourage young leaders to do, is to find that space, find that thing that they love to do, and don't let anything stop you from doing it. Find you time to do it.
Yeah, I love that. And first off, I appreciate the kind words. And, I've had others inspire me to be able to do that. And I hope to continue inspiring others. And when I find that when I think I'm lacking, the followers,
Yeah.
dollars, whatever it may be from the work I'm putting out, it's when I put the most pressure on myself and I enjoy it the least. And then I bring the least amount of value and joy to the world.
Right.
And then when I focus on what I do have and the opportunities, like we're having another conversation because of this podcast that
Yes.
I wouldn't have had before, right? And if there's only like 3 to 5 people listening, and one maybe my mom and two my dad, and the other 3 are some friends, then that's fine. That's great. And I think going back, like this is an opportunity for someone, whether they're driving, they're cooking, right? We're in their living room right now, or their car. Like how cool is that? Like 50 years ago, like we didn't have that reach. And so recognizing that, and that someone said that to me on a podcast, that on this podcast, and I was like, whoa, right? Like, why do I need 100 people in my living room? Like, if 5 is cool,
Yeah.
and we can have a conversation after they message me and said this was awesome, right?
Yeah.
So I think just recognizing that. So I think that's great advice. And what are some resources that you can plug about yourself, or other things that you're reading or learning that you want to share? And then where can people find you and learn more about what you do, and honestly get a little bit of positive content in their life?
I love something you just said. I wanted to say something about that. And I can't
Okay.
think of what you just said. So if I think about it, I'll reinforce that message that you just said. I can't think of what you just said, but anyway, um, for me, my reading this year is the Bible. There have been a lot of things that have happened in my personal life that has really, I think, caused me to be closer with God. And so my goal this year is to read the Bible. So every morning I get up, I have created me a prayer room. I watch the movie. I don't
Mhm.
know if you've heard of the movie War Room. And in the war room, the lady calls her prayer closet a war room. Well, I just call mine simply a prayer closet. I have my prayers on the wall. I have my Bible, and every day I'm reading, from the New Testament, and then I read a little bit from the Old Testament, and then the New Testament. So that's going to be my biggest reading. I'm also writing again, and I'm excited about the book I'm writing. This book is a nonfiction book, but it's about a principal in a struggling school, and then how he's going to turn that school around based on a lot of the self-leadership skills that I'm talking to you
Mm.
guys about today. So I'm excited about that book. I am going out and I am speaking, like you said, almost everywhere. I've been
Yeah.
called in to speak, and the message is simply about being and how we lead
Mm.
ourselves and how we get a chance to create this life. And I talk to people about that, and they're empowered by that, especially at this moment when you feel like COVID has you strapped. I'm saying, no, it doesn't.
Right.
No, it doesn't. COVID doesn't, it doesn't control us. You may feel like it does, but it doesn't. We're still moving. We're still, out there doing stuff.
Yeah.
We're learning to live with COVID. You can find me. I'm out there on Twitter sometimes. I'm not as present on social media as I used to be, but I'm on Twitter at Niki Spears 4. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook, Niki Spears Author. And then my website is www.nikispears.com, or you can look me up at culturecreation.com. But creation is spelled C-R-E, I don't know if you see C-R-E, the number 8 I-O-N. So it's not, so it's the number 8 I-O-N. So that's me, Justin. That's what I'm doing. I'm out there spreading that positive message, just a lot like you. And I'm excited to talk to you more, and how we can connect and just build a bigger bridge together, right? That's what it's all about.
I love it. Let's keep bridging that impact. Thanks so much for your time today, Niki, and I look forward to connecting more, and I hope the listeners reach out to you and reach out to myself, and we continue this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Bridging Impact Podcast. We hope you really enjoyed it. Hope you got a lot out of it, took a lot of notes, and you're ready to bridge that impact. The best way you can support this podcast is by liking, commenting, subscribing, sharing on social media, writing us a review, and giving us 5 stars on Spotify. So we appreciate y'all for listening. Stay tuned for next week's episode.